Okay, so this is part two. This is focused on poultry factory workers. What do I mean by poultry factory workers? Check out this picture here. These are factories where they cut up the chickens to put them into all the different parts that you see in the grocery store. So when you get thighs and legs and all that, they come from a poultry factory, and what they're doing there is they're cutting up the chickens basically, and it's usually like an assembly line. So like this individual, he's standing here. It's usually very static. You're in this assembly line all day long, sitting or standing, or kind of back and forth. It's usually very cold, okay, to keep it cool, to keep the chickens from being contaminated. Um, when you're just cutting. So as this line comes along, he's cutting the birds, like cutting the legs off or cutting the breasts off. And that's what they're doing all day long, sitting, standing, and just cutting up the birds for packaging. And as you can imagine, conditions are not that great, not to gross you out too much, but it's cold, hard cement floors usually because they have to wash down the floors. It's very wet, slimy. You think of the chicken fat and all that sort of stuff. Greasy, with your hand grip, that sort of stuff. So the tools that they're using to cut the birds are really a crucial part of the job. And this is where a lot of these injuries uh, happen. As you can imagine, there's just tons of injuries in these poultry factory workers. And OSHA has done all these studies and all this work that comes out around poultry factory workers because it's such a high risk profession. And there are poultry factories uh, in Maine. There's a lot of them in Maine, all over the country. And if you do workers' comp and work-related stuff, you're going to see people coming from these poultry factories or similar kind of jobs where it's cold and they're cutting all day long, static, high reps, nutrient pathway issues that we talked about, all kinds of issues. But getting back to the tools are big issue. A lot of great tips here from OSHA about poultry factory workers and reducing their risk on the job. Kennett's a great resource. Think of these resources, have them so you can get at them. If you have somebody comes in and they're a poultry factory worker, they're a construction worker, all these different professions, you can go right to those ergo boxes and those PowerPoints, all that OSHA stuff. It's okay. Here's some ideas to make it better for you ergonomically, reduce your risk, and hopefully reduce your pain, sort of stuff. So it's a great resource for you if you want to take advantage of it, have it handy when you need it. And who knows when you're going to need it, but you may need it at some point. So these tools, some tips around the tools. Tools should be perpendicular to the line of action, extend at least the length of the palm, have a non-slip surface, kind of in general. Angled and pistol grips keep the wrist in neutral. Think of this pistol grip, grabbing it with the fist. These really depends on what you're cutting, how you're cutting it. But again, you don't want that deviation with the wrist. You don't want the wrist to flex or extend, just the best you can, keeping it in neutral. Inline handle is best for stabbing type cuts, where the tip of the knife is used to perform the cut here, cutting the chicken. Clamping devices to hold birds in place can reduce all the strain and stress on your wrists as you're cutting. Handles on these tools should have like a C shape between the fingers, ideally like this. There's different kinds of things as the wraparound. Again, remember it's slimy and greasy. You need to keep that good grip so it's not slipping on you all the time. Textured handles can be very good for that. Blade length, maybe two handles. It really depends on what they're doing in the job. You have to kind of look at it closely. Spring-loaded tools can be really good, especially for scissors. A lot of scissors cutting work for different parts of the bird. Pneumatic or spring-loaded scissors, circular knives, specialized power tools, all-hand scoops, bend handles to keep wrist in neutral. Again, when you're looking at these tools, it's just this fundamental principles over and over again. What kind of grip do they have? Is they keeping their wrist in neutral? How do their shoulders and elbows look as they're doing it? Is there vibration? Is that an issue? It's not with these tools unless it's a power tool. Look at all those, those fundamental things, over and over again to reduce the risk. Make sure the tools are sharp. We've heard this before. If it's just scissors, always make sure they're sharp. Knife sharpening maintenance program might be a good idea to kind of implement on the job, so they keep those tools sharp because it's less fatiguing on the wrist and the hand. Contact stress can be a big thing. Spring-loaded scissors can help. Padding contact points. Again, this is we have to look closely at the tools with their hand as they're gripping the tools, considering there's something they're doing, 8 hours over and over again. Pistol grip spray nozzles that use entire hand, like this one, versus just the fingertip kind of thing. A trigger that can wear out one digit quickly. Cut out workstations, kind of some right here. Here's a good one right here. To getting close, going to get close again to stay within that power zone. Automatic baggers and auto sealers, using wheeled carts and dumpsters. Mechanized tillers and dumpers need to be positioned to reduce reaching and bending. You'll have to look closely at everything they're doing. Just a general side note: the best time to really do this is before the person starts. Once they've done a job for years, it's really hard to change somebody, as you can imagine. Before the new person starts, it's great to have that OT or Go consult and go and look at all these things and set it up ideally for the person so they get these new habits right off the bat versus trying to force them into new habits, which can be really challenging. Seating, again, is a big issue. Thinking about good support. Adjustable is always the thing. Supporting device for long standing. Use of device result in elevated reaching, pending the power zone. Chairs adjustable. Tall chairs. It just depends. This person looks pretty good in this one. Got to worry about the contact stress with their foot. If they're doing this all day long, again, they'd have to vary it up. Again, that theme of moderation. Not doing any one thing for prolonged periods, but varying it up, doing different things. The foot rail we talked about, seat span, not touching the knees, backrest, good support in the backrest. Don't really need armrests, so they're going to be free in doing all these cutting activities. Stations need to really be able to be adjustable. The more you can adjust it, the better. Here's some examples of a simple way of adjusting it with footstools, so it's within everybody's power zone, because everybody obviously is a different size. Talked about the right height with this with earlier PowerPoints for close work, heavier force kind of work, tips around that. Conveyor belt, again, maybe can you adjust the conveyor belt? Maybe not, but you can adjust where they're standing in relation to the conveyor belt. So it's not one size fits all. Again, staying in that power zone, anti-fatigue mats, and non-slip surfaces, all that sort of stuff. Material handling, optimal shelf height between knuckles and shoulder height with arms outside. Here's a good example of that. So this is a good place. If he's shelving in this area right here would be good. Down here, not so good, but this would be a good area for him. Always pushing versus pulling, balancing loads. Vertical handles, this is a good example of the vertical handles. This is good information about the wheels. This may come back. This is a good question to ask about his wheels. Solid wheels for concrete, hard surfaces. Pneumatic wheels for uneven surfaces. Larger wheels, generally easier to push. Okay, so that was poultry.